Well, all right, all right, all right. Why not come in here with a Matt McConaughey vibe? Because, guys, welcome to 2025, the new year, and here we are. It's the Jen Carroll Show, kicking it off chill, because there's going to be a lot. And you know me, I get wound up. So I am here with the pod. I'm back. I've missed you. It has been quite a busy 3 weeks while I was gone. And I will have stories to tell you I'm very excited about, but I can't share all the news yet. So let's start with the zeitgeist, which is Eileen Cannon has just blocked the Jack Smith report that was going to tell us what all the things Trump did. And I can't believe that Jack Smith chose to open this thing in Florida and that we thought there were any humans in Florida aside from the people who can't vote and can't seem to have any influence whatsoever. The good people of Florida, in my humble opinion. Florida is such a corrupt steam bag of shite. It's no wonder Mar-a-Lago is where Trump wants to be because it's just corrupt. And it's Eileen Cannon, once again, with her not acknowledgement of wisdom and, of course, no following of the Constitution. Just you get what you pay for when you buy a judge. And this little gal who has literally no experience is knocking it out of the park for Donald. I hope she has big treats coming her way. She better at least be living large, because if you're going to sell your soul like this, I swear the reward has to be worth it. I've thought about selling my soul. I can't imagine anything worth it to completely give up my character, my being, and the essence of my integrity. Like, what the hell? So that's the zeitgeist, which is fuck them if they can't take a vote. I mean, here we are. So with that being the big layer, the other part that's in the zeitgeist is Jimmy Carter dying. And I am 62 years old, really close to not being that anymore. Frantically close to not being that anymore. A few short weeks. And I remember Jimmy Carter. I could not vote for him. I was still too young. But he was both someone whom I admired, but I was also taught to not admire him. If you remember back in the day, and those of us who are old enough to remember back in the day, the messages we got about Jimmy Carter is that he was a failure, he was feckless, he was a peanut farmer, all kinds of horrible things. That was kind of the meta. And I was in high school during that time and paid attention to things, and it went on to cause me to make probably one of the biggest mistakes of my life. But what do you know, at 18, what do you know? Yes, I am on the record. I voted for Reagan. And my roommate will never let me live that down. That's why I might as well just admit it out loud right now. You know me. I'm all about the authenticity. And I have shared many of my secrets. And so I want to make sure that everybody knows, yep, I voted for Reagan. 1980, a little kid. Now I wasn't a little kid. I made that vote. Gosh, interesting. Probably right after my dad was murdered. If you think about when the primary was, because that was in March. Maybe the primary had already happened, but in California, and actually I wouldn't have been able to vote for Reagan in the primary because I would have been a registered Democrat. It would have been in the fall. But that's, let's just write that off as PTSD. Okay. I'm going to just go for it. I was mentally ill due to murder and everything else. And God knows that gift of mental illness has lasted me my whole life. So here we are in January, and yesterday was hard. I don't know who else felt like it was a gut punch to get through January 6th, 4 years later, our first big January 6th where we had to certify a presidential election. And I dreaded it. I dreaded it Sunday night. I dreaded it all day yesterday. That's why I decided to go ahead and open my new telephone, which caused me to then have a tantrum about technology, which was better than me having a tantrum about democracy, because frankly, I can tantrum about anything, and it was easier to take it out on the phone. And my children, my poor kids, who pulled me off the wall. So here we are, looking at January, looking ahead, and like I said, there are some big things in the works. I can't talk about them quite yet, only for legal reasons, which, look at that, that's a pretty impressive sentence right there, right? I can't talk about it for legal reasons, and it's not because I'm getting sued. Knock on linoleum. Nope, it's good legal reasons, the kind of legal reasons that once those things are nailed down, then I can talk about freely because everything is protected and legally secured. So if that gives you some hints about what's coming, keep thinking, because I hope it's good stuff. I hope it's very good stuff. And you know me, I just can't sit still. So I don't know if I announced this on the podcast, but I also got an official press pass. I am now an official freelance journalist. It turns out a lot of the reporting I've been doing qualified me as press because I publish in the right places, I guess. And I have citations and I talk too much. And so I'm a prolific content provider, but it met the standards required to get the press pass, which is both domestic and international. And so I don't know why that was so important to me, but I'll tell you, it was journalism that saved me when I was a kid. And it's so funny. You know, I always talk about, I think of myself like some of these other people, you know, like Kamala, because why not? I over-identify with her. But when I was class president as a sophomore and a junior, and I was a damn fine class president because you know me, of course I took it seriously and I really advocated for the students. And then I ran for student body president. And technically, I mean, based on the facts and evidence, I should have won. But what I did, which was so classic me, is I took it seriously. And I forgot that these things are popularity contests. In fact, that is probably one of my big blinders, is that I forget people do stuff based on the truthiness of the thing rather than of the reality of the truth. So, and I love Stephen Colbert for calling out truthiness. You know, that's that feeling when you just think you know, but there's no facts to support it. So anyway, to bring up a tragic story that still chaps me to this day is I lost to being the associated student body president, which is, you know, the big job. I lost to a Sarah Palin wannabe. I swear to God, the woman I lost to was such a dipshit. So remarkably stupid. It drove me insane that I lost to someone so stupid because I thought merit was based on, I don't know, being smart and being a good and having a good track record and all those things that some of us might think merit is based on. The rest of the story is because I didn't win the big election, it means I couldn't be in leadership in my senior year, which was a big deal to me because leadership had a lot of privileges. Let's be clear. It did. It let you register first. I basically gave you a free pass to completely have command of the school, which I, of course, used to death because I loved making crap happen. And so I was given a very big gift by the head of journalism at our high school, which that was a thing. Journalism was actually valued back in high school. And he made me the reporter and the representative to sit in cabinet where I could watch leadership work and report on it. I loved it. It saved my ass. It was the perfect job for an anarchist because, you know, at that point, all I wanted to do was mock the woman who won, but I didn't need to mock her. That was like so not a productive thing. What I could do is report. And so I worked as a journalist that first semester. I ended up graduating early, which was good because murder crap happened in March. But the thing is that Mr. Buffin, let's name the guy. Mr. Buffin was an outstanding advisor, and he really had a passion for journalism, and he taught me how to do the job. And so for me to get a freelance journalist pass, press credential, it's a legitimate credential. Like I updated my LinkedIn, people. I'm excited to get this credential now at this age. And after all of my work, just doing what I do, which is just telling the stories that I care about, it just feels really good. It just feels like a kind of a cleansing bath after the Silicon Valley life that I've led. And I'm not going to take my eye off Silicon Valley. I mean, I know how that business runs, so I'm keeping an eye on that. But I'm not sure if I'll be reporting as much as hopefully trying to affect some change. And this freelance journalism thing goes very much with the secret thing that I can't talk about yet, but I will be talking about a ton really soon. So I just wanted to share that news with you because it's very, very exciting to me. And I put a picture of it on, I got it on Christmas Eve. Can you believe it? In the mail on Christmas Eve, which was great because we don't really do Christmas. Our Christmas is kind of nothing, but it felt nice to have something in my little hands, that showed that I was worthy, you know, that everybody deserves validation. And it felt like I was worthy. So that's the zeitgeist. That's the teaser for what's coming. We're going to get into something today that's aligned with where I'm headed, and it's about civility. And last time we talked about agency, meaning it's important everybody feels like they have a way to make a difference. Well, Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk about civility. All right, we're back. We're going to talk about the importance of civility as it relates to democracy. And this, the work that I did, the stuff that I prepared, the content that I have here is a little bit listicle, meaning that there's lists here. So you can come online and read the lists if you want to come back to them. I'm going to go through the lists a little bit quickly, at least this first list, as quickly as I can. And then there's two lists, and I just want you to take it in and see what you think about it, and then decide what fits for you. That's probably the best part, because the intention of this podcast about civility is to inspire you to look for it, to look for civility, and to practice civility, and to reward it when you find it. That's probably the most important thing, right? Positive reinforcement, we know, is super powerful. The only thing more powerful is intermittent positive reinforcement, which I use on the cats all the time. Sometimes you get a treat, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just get pets. Intermittent positive reinforcement, because you don't know when you're going to get the reinforcement. But either way, us taking the time to acknowledge and be happy, and when we see civility, to acknowledge it, is going to help us manifest more. But let's start with Carter's legacy, because we're at this place, right, where we're looking back. I mean, the universe did provide us with an interesting opportunity right now, in that we can look back on someone like Jimmy Carter, who was really had probably a really unfair shake when he was president, and to find out later that Reagan and the boys, it was, we say the president's name, and I hate when we blame a president, because it's often the machine behind them. And in this case, we're talking about the Cheneys and Halliburton and so many ugly things. But they essentially held back those Iranian hostages so that Jimmy Carter had the stain on his legacy rather than on Reagan's. And so Reagan could have the win. Very Trumpian, very, very Trumpian. A very Reagan move. But again, it's the machine. And we're watching Trump, even though people say President Trump, I feel like we're really watching the machine around Trump, because remember, he only plays with what's shiny and silver in front of him. And if he thinks he's going to get something from it, it's all transactional for him. I'm not sure it was quite so transactional in the past, but here's where we are. So as the universe says, hey, look back at Carter and look what's ahead of us, it's a good time to tune into what it was about Carter's legacy that really was about civility. And civility is so important for our democracy. Let me give you 10 ways, and there's so much more, but let me just give you 10 really powerful ways President Carter had a legacy of civility. First of all, he championed human rights. Globally, he was very big on making sure that humans had rights and that they had equality and justice. And he often emphasized dialogue over confrontation, because he really believed that if you could listen to everybody, there might be some common ground. With that in mind, he also treated political opponents with respect. During his career, he refrained from personal attacks, and he focused on the policy differences rather than character assassinations. For just a moment, because we all do this now, I do it too. I am guilty of this. It's so easy to want to just make it personal, right? I mean, Elon Musk is super ugly. Can we all just agree on he's ugly? And if you think he's not ugly, you're gonna fix your glasses. It's really easy. I want to just go there. I just want to be, oh, you ugly, ugly, ugly human. That's what I want to be. But the thing is, that's not going to get us anywhere, right? I mean, everybody knows he's ugly. Even the people who like him, I think, know he's ugly. He's got a horrible, horrible personality, and he doesn't care about anybody else but himself. But the point is that that's not productive. If we can look at the issues, the fact that Elon wants to be a nihilist, and the fact that we're even talking about Elon Musk right now when he shouldn't be anything in our country other than an entrepreneur, and that should have its natural consequences. But of course it doesn't, because he has managed to get in bed with everyone and basically terrify everyone because of his wealth. If we could just treat political opponents with respect, imagine where we'd be if we just focused on policy differences. Alas, that one's going to be a hard one for us to come back from. Carter emphasized community service, and boy, did he walk his talk. He wanted people to show up and to do good. And I feel that I did grow up with that also in my family. That was a high ideal. It's not that my dad did a lot of it. My mom was not a big one for for charity, a giving at all. I think she was raised by two people who were hilariously funny and delightful and actually really generous, but also always managed their money. So my mom grew up in a bit of a scarcity model, but my dad didn't. And he did a lot for the community. In fact, the joke in our house is my dad would go help others before he would help us. Completely true. It's probably true with me too. Really good at focusing outward. So community services was a big one. Carter also advocated for peaceful resolutions. Remember the Camp David Accords? And if you don't, go look it up. But he really was trying so hard to get folks to find common ground. He maintained dignity in defeat. After he lost in 1980, he gracefully conceded and he offered his support to his successor. Could you imagine that? Encouraging national unity. That used to be a thing. I remember when the three presidents, what was it? What is Rachel calls him? Poppy Bush and Clinton and, oh my God, my brain. Anyway, our presidents came together and they wanted to keep going on national unity. Ex-presidents. Barack. Duh. Hello. Sorry. Forgot about Barack. You know, it's so easy to forget about Barack. Not at all. Okay. So anyway, that was the kind of person that Carter was. He believed in working together and supporting his successor, even after he lost. Better person than I, frankly. Carter promoted democracy globally. That used to be a thing. That was a big thing. We were really proud as Americans. I can actually remember feeling this, that we were doing the right thing with democracy and that we wanted to share that with others if they wanted to have the kind of lives we had, if we wanted to have the kind of government we had. That's really been off the table. He lived a humble lifestyle. Tell me the last president that lived a humble lifestyle. I guess Biden really did live a humble lifestyle, so humble that we didn't know about it and people mocked him if he took a break on the beach or had an ice cream cone or rode his bike. For the love of God, how American can it be to sit in a beach chair or eat an ice cream cone or ride a bike? Those are pretty humble ways to live. Carter was the same. He didn't need all these accoutrements, as they say. Don't ever criticize my French. I already know it's terrible. My sister-in-law speaks French fluently, and I am a goofball. I'm just there as a comic relief. Carter also acknowledged his mistakes. He openly admitted his administration's challenges and mistakes, and he modeled accountability and the importance of learning from errors. Holy crap! So, it used to be super American to be resilient and to be able to learn from your mistakes and to be better next time. I guess when you have money, you don't have to learn from your mistakes. You just buy the person you fucked over and you move on. And then he engaged and insisted on bipartisan efforts. I mean, he really did. That was his way of governing. It probably cost him the presidency, right? Because he really wanted to address things like global issues like disease and poverty and find ways to solve these problems that were helping humans. Again, his big thing was human rights. So those are 10 ways Carter just in the way he moved, in the way he was intentional in his presidency, he delivered on some real democratic ways of being civil. He really was a democracy strong president. Yeah, you try to say that. All right. So what if it wasn't him? What if it was us? What if we had to do some of this stuff? What does civility mean, Jen? How could I be more civil? I mean, we know how to be more civil in general. That's a thing. Everybody's told us to be more civil. If we could all just be more civil. I don't know who that voice belongs to, but I guess it belongs to the internet. There are ways we can be more civil, and they're not very hard. And I picked 10 that I thought would be very doable and very much like how your grandmother expects you to behave, which is probably the best way to think about this, because it used to matter that we had manners and that we paid attention to each other and that we saw each other and that we were respectful of one another. Because while we may not respect one another's actions, we did respect one another, that we got to where we were and that we were here because we were all basically trying to do our best. So here's 10 intentional and painless ways to return civility to our world. Please opt into any that speak to you. The first one's super awesome and super easy, and it's been my thing now since I'm back out trying to walk again. see 3 weeks of hell over Christmas. Not that I ate. No. You get a pre-diabetic warning and you have to get your ass out of the chair. So the first one is easy. Smile and greet people. My daughter says I'm slightly pathological about this, but I love it because I never know what somebody's going to say back when I smile at them. Like they might let me pet their dog, or they might go, hey, hi, nice to see you. And then you can have a conversation. Anyway, it's that way of just smiling and acknowledging other humans. Don't be weird. I'm not saying to be weird. There is a weird factor in this if you are weird or if you're being weird. But I mean in general, smile and greet people. Use kind language. Maybe not on social media, although I'm trying really hard on social media. The word fuck is still one of a very effective word, so that one's going to still appear in my post, but I'm trying really hard. It's funny how many times I write a post, and then I'm like, nope, not your circus, not your clowns. Get out of this one, Jen. You have nothing to add here. Sometimes I do. But choose words that uplift and avoid inflammatory or derogatory language. And we know what that is. That's really going too far. So I'm trying really hard to use kind language. And ironically, I'm trying to use kind language with myself. That's my new reframe. I'm no longer referring to anything I do as work. I'm referring to it as adding value. So that's using kind language for myself. And yes, doing the laundry does add value to my mental health. Even though I despise it, it does add value. So I'm using kind language. How am I adding value to my mental health today? I'm going to get my laundry done. I'm going to clean up the kitchen. These tasks that when you live alone seem so ridiculous and yet important. You can listen actively. That's number 3. Give others your full attention. This one's a hard one. This one may require training. You may have become an inactive listener. Look, I'm even having a hard time. My big accomplishment for myself on active listening is watching Ted Lasso without crocheting or without holding my phone. It's that good. And it's that hard for me to focus. That's how much I've let my brain turn to mush. So there's a good experiment right there on listening actively. And then I love listening actively when I'm talking to someone because it is amazing what truth bombs people will reveal when you speak with them. And then you find out stuff about them that you're just like, holy crap, you're amazing. Oh my God, that's so incredible. How are you this person? And almost everyone has an incredible part of their being. They just do. So listen actively, compliment genuinely. This one's my favorite. I throw out compliments all the time. You know why? Because they're free and it's like chum in the water. If you're that person who's nice. So when I talk to a customer, I spent a lot of time over the holiday talking to customer service people. If you have to go deal with insurance and all that stuff, you know, you're mad before you start. But instead I told people when I got on the phone, I said, look, I'm having feelings about this and I'm a little worked up and I know none of this is your fault. So if you hear me sound a little irritated, just please have patience. I'm going to try really hard to just make this as effective and as good as a transaction as possible over the phone. And I'll be damned if these people all didn't lighten up. They just lightened up. They were like, okay. And then I thanked them when we're done. The genuine compliment, I said, my God, thank you for listening to me. I really feel like you heard me. I think you understood what I was trying to do. I really appreciate that because often, customer service, they go into their script and they have to turn to the right page and they have to read what they're supposed to read. But if you can get them to just take a minute and listen to you and say, wait, I know this is what you want to do, but can I just tell you why what I'm saying is a little bit different? They do. So there you go. And then they get a genuine compliment. Express gratitude. I expressed very much gratitude to these folks when they helped me, and then apologize sincerely. So if somebody makes a mistake, if you make a mistake, just apologize. Just apologize. It's so easy. And don't say, I try not to say I'm sorry anymore. I try to say I'd like to apologize because the word has much more gravitas. And I'm sorry is what a lot of people say about everything. I stubbed my toe. Oh, I'm sorry. No, you're not sorry I stubbed my toe. That's weird. That's just weird. You're not apologizing. I'm sorry. It isn't. What you're saying is, what you really should say is that sucks, because that's really what that is. I stubbed my toe. That sucks. We say I'm sorry all the time. Think about the word apologize and look for ways to internalize that word and use it, because even in business, I no longer said I'm sorry I didn't whatever. I just said I apologize that blah, blah, blah happened and that my role in it or whatever. But the word apologize just has so much more gravitas. Avoid making assumptions. This one could be a whole podcast, mostly because whenever we make an assumption, the corollary that goes with it is that what we fill in the blank is our own bias. So think about that for a minute. We all walk around with our bias. Our bias is based on how we were born, live, what we do, how we see things, our experiences, all that crap. Everything makes us our personal bias, right? And our personal bias can be huge or small depending on how actively we're paying attention to it. But in the moment when we don't have information, there's no information, we make an assumption. This is huge on social media because how many of us really read the articles? Okay, I happen to read a lot of the articles because this is what I care about right now. But most of us don't really go read the articles. We see the headline, we see maybe a tease, we see some comments, and then we assume what's in the story. And then it reflects our bias. So avoid making assumptions. Maybe read the article. And if you didn't read the article, maybe skip that one. Social media is one, but this happens all the time. It happens a lot with the people that we deal with on a daily basis. They come in, they say something, and we assume their intention. I talk about intention all the time. We assume their intention, and we usually assume it's negative, unless we're ready to give them the halo effect and assume it's positive. So just question your own assumptions and catch yourself making them. They happen super fast. It's a way we cope, and it's the only way we can deal with so much information. So when you're making assumptions about people you care about, that's where I'd start. That's where you're going to have the greatest impact the fastest. That's my favorite question. What's your idea? So now you can modulate that to fit, but always when you don't understand what someone said or you find you're having an insane reaction to it, ask them to clarify, because that's a you problem. You're adding all the garbage to it. Ask them to clarify. Okay, and then to promote diverse voices, this is on all of us, especially white women who listen to me. We have got to amplify more voices wherever we can. This is our charter. We need diversity of thought and we need diversity of voice. That's the one thing that's going to help with those assumptions and our point of view. If we want to be better thinkers, we have got to get more people in the conversation from different points of view. We want to celebrate others' success. It is not a zero-sum game. When someone else is successful, it doesn't take away from you. Unless, of course, you're running for student body president. Then it sucks. But otherwise, we can celebrate others' successes. And in that case, it's just look for people who are having success and be happy for them. Happiness is some of the best energy we can have. So don't be afraid. Don't use envy. If you're feeling envious, check yourself. Check in on why you feel like that somehow took something away from you. Maybe you've been lazy. Maybe you've been avoiding. Maybe you've been doing a bunch of self-talk that's kept you from having success. That's what I find in my coaching practice, is that a lot of people have a lot of self-talk, and that's not even therapy. That's just like some pragmatic crap that we do, that we talk ourselves out of cool stuff. If you think that about your life in terms of adding value versus work, it's a lot easier to change that self-talk. What can I do to add value today? That will help you celebrate others' successes and get you out of any negativity that you're rolling around in. That's your own crap. Ugh, the worst part, the stuff we generate and beat ourselves up with. And then the last one, which I've really been trying to focus on in the last 3 weeks as well, respect my community, respect your community. I've been trying to do more shopping locally. Yes, it's brought me to my knees. I am in tears for how many stores have closed that I used to go to, because I basically, last year in grief with my mom's dying, I sat here like a lump. I just was struggling so hard, and I didn't want to leave the house. And I teased myself that, like, okay, here it is. You're just choosing agoraphobia. How nice for you. But, agoraphobia is based on the idea that you don't want to be out in the public, out being active. And that's actually, agoraphobia is probably the worst thing we could have right now. That is the worst. We need the opposite of that. We need the agora part. We need the part where we go out and join the public square, that we become involved in our community. And it's more than just shopping locally. It's taking a walk in your town. It's when you walk. I know it's gross. I think I actually need to probably wear one glove, but I find I'm a trash picker-upper, and I will pick up the gross stuff. I picked up the dog poop in the bag, and I picked up the used masks because I don't want them in my ocean. There's no reason any of that should be in the ocean, and I hate the people who left them on the ground. but I'm going to be the one that picks it up. So that's the respect your community. In fact, for the first time ever, I honked at a litterer yesterday. I wanted to have that mean lady face. Now that I'm going to get older, I want to make sure I get a good mean lady face. I don't know how to have one of those, but I'm trying. I'm practicing. Because this woman just threw garbage on the ground. She just threw it on the ground. No, not on my watch. Now, I couldn't go back and get it because I was in moving traffic, and that would have been the height of my own lunacy. But the point is, at least I point, and she knows I saw her and I honked at her. She knew because she was like, yeah, dumbass. Anyway, respecting your community is super important, and it's something we all can do. So I'm down for other ideas. There's so many ways to be respectful in your community. So guess what? If you do some of these things, there's an upside that you're not going to believe that actually is about you, because it's good for your brain and your health. And the thing is, civility is a way of being positive. So please grant me the grace to do a little bit of an extension here, because I considered civility to be positivity. And if we look at and I believe it is. I mean, it just absolutely is. You have to work to do these things. You have to believe in positive outcomes to be committed to being civil. It means you're investing your energy into making things better. So that to me is the very essence of positivity. And civility can be challenging. There's lots of people that are going to challenge you. There's whole generations that didn't even get trained in civility because we handed them phones at 3 years old and said, here, do this while I go talk to the neighbors. I mean, let's face it, civility is something we're going to have to bring back, and it's going to be a little bit hard for the people who weren't trained in it. But the thing is, it is about changing your brain and your health, and it makes us all better. Optimism and resilience play a significant role in how we endure tough times. I'm sorry, we're like, ask all the clowns in the 1929 depression. I don't know if there were clowns in the 29 depression. I don't know where positivity came from, but you know, other than the speakeasies that were hiding alcohol and people were having a good time there. You know, all of us, you listen to this podcast because you know I'm both an ass and I give a shit. So there's and I'm optimistic. I am optimistic. And so that is really important on how we endure tough times. And research has found that optimistic people cope better with stress, recover more effectively from setbacks, and are less likely to suffer from deep depression and anxiety. That's just because you see the glass half full and you're willing every day to get back up and see the glass half full. Some days you want to throw the glass at the wall. It's fair. You're going to have to recover. But generally, in your countenance and being, you believe every day the glass will be half full. And by the way, I love you for that. I freaking love you for that. Thank you for listening to me. Like, God damn, that's so important. On a social level, there's been a ton of research, but there's one in particular, Barbara Fredrickson has done this thing called about broaden and build theory that highlights how positive emotions expand our thinking and problem-solving capabilities and allows them to develop meaningful social connections. So the minute you become a positive person and you're thinking in positive ways, you automatically start to think and problem solve better, and you start to develop more meaningful social connections. And this is supported by additional studies showing that these positive interactions enhance teamwork and cooperation. So the ripple effect further emphasizes that positivity is contagious. Research on emotional contagion has demonstrated that one person's positive mood can influence those around them, fostering a more harmonious and productive environment. And let me tell you how you know this is true. You're having a bad day, you're super bummed out, you're just, and suddenly you talk to a friend or someone who just makes you laugh or get you to stop focusing on yourself, or just somehow just distracts you. It's kind of an EMDR technique, right? Hand somebody a fork. If you're perseverating on negative thoughts, all you got to do is interrupt them. And that's frankly one of the things I've been working on in therapy. It has to do with the grief. But when I really get going on the grief, I need to interrupt it, because right at the moment I'm so deep in the grief, it's not productive. It's not damn productive at all. If anything, I'm freaking crying again, and now I've got boogers and the whole thing. And what my therapist has taught me to do is some very, the tapping things, even the little tapping things, the little disruptors. Hand them a fork. That's the thing. That's my thing. Hand them a fork. Something to interrupt you and go, why did you hand me a fork? And just with that thought, you interrupted the perseverating. So imagine the opposite, that positivity is that contagious, and that it can, what your good mood can be shared with others and lift everyone up. And frankly, that's one of the reasons I like doing podcasting, is I'm hoping that I'm helping other people feel good about fighting. We got to fight, but I want you to feel good about the fight. I want you to feel like you're on the right team and that you're not alone, and that the fact that my listenership has increased tells me that there's a lot of us out there. So that's it. We're going to foster a harmonious and productive environment. Your body, by the way, if you're being positive and if you're being civil, your body also appreciates that. And this is important for all of us as healthcare becomes less and less available. Everything you can do to make your body healthier is a good thing. Physiologically, reducing stress through positivity lowers our cortisol levels. And you know, those are the things that keep us from losing weight and also keep us just a hot mess. It screws up your blood sugar and everything else. And once we get our cortisol levels lowered, it's overall better health. And this positive outlook also leads to lower stress hormone levels. So here we go, guys. Even being civil, our bodies like us being civil. My walks are so much better when I'm looking at people and talking to people and acknowledging them and you know, just seeing the other humans that are out there who are also trying to enjoy and who are enjoying this bounty of the planet that we have before the climate change. No, never mind. Stop, Jen, stop. We're being positive. The brain also benefits from a neuroscientific perspective, the concept of neuroplasticity, right? That your brain can change and adapt and bounce. That positive thoughts and mindfulness practices. So that's positive thoughts and things like meditation. Yoga's one too. I even think in some ways, any of us doing crafts where we kind of just get in the zone, these are mindfulness, right? You're very focused on what you're doing, and it's very good for you. It can rewire the brain, and it creates new pathways that promote emotional regulation and optimism. My big thing when I learned about neurons and how cool they are is that neurons can die and neurons can find new connections. And so I always walk around here going, got to build a new neural connection. I need a new neural connection between doing the dishes and happiness. How am I going to build that? So if I do the dishes, maybe I have a reward for myself. I love that we can rewire our brains. Like, we can just consciously do that. MRI studies indicate that regular gratitude and meditation practices lead to measurable, that's an important word here, measurable changes in brain structure. The positive emotions activate our brain's reward circuits and release dopamine and reinforce positive experience. Neuroscience research illustrates how these mechanisms encourage people to repeat positive behaviors. So while it seems like sometimes the negativity is where we end up, if we can practice positivity, it becomes a self-rewarding behavior. I'm going to let you just be quiet with that for a minute because you're going to have to think about that. But yes, if you're intentional, and remember my big word intention is big for me. If you're intentional, it can make a difference. There's also, I'm almost done, guys. There's also behavioral evidence that supports the idea that positive energy works to enhance motivation and persistence, not quitting, improving outcomes in both personal and professional settings. For instance, athletes there's a ton of research on athletes and positive mental attitude because, of course, I'm going to follow the money, right? I don't know how the world became so obsessed with sports around people that, like so much money around sports, right? So there's all this research, and athletes with a positive mental attitude perform better under pressure. Positive reinforcements is another behavioral mechanism, as focusing on good outcomes strengthens desirable behaviors over time. Behavioral therapy often uses positive reinforcement to encourage habit formation and growth. So there you go. I want to call this the Ted Lasso effect. I already led on that I'm watching Ted Lasso. It only takes me like 4 or 5 years to catch up with trends, but I'm on it now. And damn, do I love that Keely. Love her. Just love Keely. I just want to be Keely. Anyway, real-world use cases further highlight the power of positive energy. Like in the workplace, teams that create a positive culture, and I know this is true because this was frankly how I managed. And I'm not trying to brag. I'm just saying I couldn't imagine leading my team with anything in any other way than a positive culture, meaning seeing them, listening to them. I would know based on their Myers-Briggs kind of how they needed information. So I knew the people who needed a lot of details, and I knew the people who didn't. I knew the people who had imagination and the people who couldn't imagine. All of them valuable, all of them incredibly valuable. So if you have in the workplace teams with a positive culture, report higher morale, lower turnover, and greater innovation. Because they're not afraid. They're actually encouraged. And you know what? In work, we're actually saying, I see them as being here to add value. They're not here to work. They're here to add value. Once you use those words, once you change and reframe it to adding value, changes everything. Studies in the Harvard Business Review show that positive work environments consistently outperform negative ones. We don't need to look at Twitter to know anything more than that. Old Twitter versus new Twitter. Wow. Similarly, positive energy improves relationships by fostering trust, empathy, and cooperation. Now, this will be interesting because we're going to head into I think this is one of the things that, this is completely, I'm going off book again, but I think it'll be interesting to watch as this Trump administration comes in, because they pretend to look like they're positive, but what they are is they're kind of drunk on power and giddy. I do not believe it's a positive that morale is going to be high. This is not where they foster good morality. No, this is where we're going to see positivity really be a problem. So, because it's not real positivity. It's going to look, that's actually a lot of the MAGA stuff tries to look like things we want to recognize, but they're not truly that. So, this real world use cases I called the Ted Lasso effect for non-athletes. So as we rebuild democracy, and God, I hope that's what we're going to do, civility is going to be an essential ingredient. And I think it's really important. Any of you guys that are geezers, and I mean over 50, please take this message to your families. Please reward civility in your families. Look for ways to call out good. I think that one of the things that hit me so hard is my friend who voted for Trump, in every other way, is one of the most civil people I've ever met. She is a really good person, but she is so stupid. I can't believe how stupid she is. But the fact is we can find civility everywhere, and it's something we can reward and acknowledge and encourage in our families and in our groups. It's essential. It's so important. Even George W. Bush's website says it's vital. There's a page on the website about civility, and there's even a nonprofit called the Civility Project that offers workshops for companies and organizations looking to embrace this approach and come together for constructive outcomes. So there's help if you need it. But it's for us, for all of us listening, for everybody here that I have like in my little world here, it's a thing that matters, and it's something we can control. We can control this. So it's time to get our House, our Senate, our Supreme Court, our executive branch, but even our own homes in order. And it starts with us. And I'm not saying being quiet or demure. Lord knows you're going to have times when you need to be loud and proud and out there. But do it from a place of positivity. I am absolutely positive Eileen Cannon can go fuck herself, because she is corrupt as they come. But I am calling out the corruption. But I absolutely am doing it in a positive way. This woman needs to be held accountable. That's not being a sad sack. That's looking at the world through clear eyes, very clear-headed. And I'm not saying you have to be quiet about those things. What I'm saying is every time you have an opportunity to be civil, please be civil. Do it because it supports democracy. And it's going to be really important for where we're headed in the future. All right, when we come back, a huge update to the Blue List, because I was pretty lackadaisical about it over the holiday, and I just added a bunch of stuff. Come on back for the Blue List right after this. All right, we are back for the Blue List. Lots of updates today. I'm still working on a plan to get this website better, but it's there. You can go to jcarroll.com, the Blue List. It's right there, the nav. And let me tell you really quickly what I've added. Quite a few things here. First of all, there are 29 steps you can take to protect democracy. This is from an organization called democracy.org, and it's great. So you need to come in here and take a look at what those are. 29 steps. Then that's kind of in the broad sense. The next is a tool from ProPublica, which is awesome. It is a check before you donate tool where you can find out the status of all nonprofits out there. I think it's all the nonprofits. I was doing some crazy searches, and it'll to let you know how the money is spent and if they're in good standing and all the other things you would want to know if you're going to give some of your precious dollars to someone. And that's, by the way, something I care a lot about. So we'll be coming back to this one. This one's a big one because I think one of the ways we're going to save democracy is with our own checkbooks. I'm sorry to say. It's going to take our effort, but also it's going to take where we choose to spend our money, and knowing whom to donate, who to support is going to be incredibly important. The next is from Proud Navy Veteran. If you do not follow him on Blue Sky, you are missing out. He's also on Twitter, but I think a bunch of people are planning to leave Twitter this month at the time of the inauguration. If you are not on Blue Sky, you're missing out. And I'll tell you why. It allows you don't have to get lost in conversations. You really don't. It allows you to curate in a way you couldn't do. Frankly, I don't think I've been able to do in any other social media, in that you can, like, I have a news feed and it's just news. And so if I want to get into those articles, I can go look at the comments, which kind of tells me how the conversation's going. And so that's nice. There's also something where you can I set up something called My Favorite People. Those are the voices I kind of need to hear because I trust them and I appreciate their point of view. So My Favorite People is one of my lists, and it's how I know I can hear essentially what's kind of in this. That's my zeitgeist thing. But I also have people, like I have one for just my town. Anytime I discover somebody's from the Santa Cruz area, I put them on one of my lists so I can see what's happening locally. And God forbid we need to activate locally. I need to know who my Blue Sky people are. So you can actually curate your Blue Sky experience to be that good. And that's why you got to go get Proud Navy Veteran. But here's the deal. What he offered up is prepping for non-preppers. And it's so funny. Right before COVID, I found out my daughter was a prepper. I had no idea. This woman went crazy, but she was good. She was prepared, and she actually helped me prepare. These are the kind of things, basics you may never have considered. It's right up there with knowing what to do with the most, like if your power goes out, having more than one resource, knowing how you're going to get through that. What happens if you can't get medications? That's going to be a big one. There's a very good chance getting access to medications could be threatened. So what are you going to do? You got to figure this out. Anyway, prepping for non-preppers is there from Proud Navy Veteran. And then regardless of your immigration status, the ACLU has put together the rights that you have under the Constitution, and they have included it in Espanol, which is great because we need to be able to share this with people who do not have English as a first language. So the ACLU is on fire there. Anybody with immigration status questions, and you're guaranteed rights under the Constitution. If you are pregnant, once again, ProPublica for the win. They are sharing the medical procedures that could save your life that are available to you. So you need, if you know someone who's pregnant, if you're worried about being pregnant in a red state or in an anti-abortion state, ProPublica's got your back. Mark Elias is fantastic. He's one of our heroes. He can't do it all, though. There is another organization that's focusing on what we're doing legally, and that's the State Democracy Defenders. I was kind of impressed by who's in that group, and it is worth your eyes. If you are a meta thinker and you want to see big picture stuff, that's what's happening there. And if you want to avoid the autocrats' goals of fear, isolation, exhaustion, and disorientation, there are 10 ways to prepare and ground yourself. It's an interesting article from a group called Waging Nonviolence. And it's definitely for those of you who are in that, who give a crap about waging nonviolence and how to, and what these 10 ways to prepare yourself. So good stuff. If you want to pay attention to your money, there are some key dates for personal finances in 2025. This is from Bloomberg. Some of these do hit paywalls. I'm sorry. I want to still list them. We'll deal with the paywalls later, but at least you know they're out there as a source, and possibly you can dig deeper. Sometimes when you hit a paywall, somebody has summarized the article somewhere else. So I'm hoping that if you know that this kind of content's out there, you can search for it with some of these key words instead of being able to read the thing that's behind a firewall. If the feds were to come knocking at your door, and there have been many, many articles suggesting this could happen, so I'm a little bit worried about this. If the feds were to come knocking at your door, of course, first, don't open the door. like vampires, people. Law enforcement's like vampires. You got to let them in. If you let them in, you're screwed. But they have to be invited in. So don't open the door. But Courtney Milan has a whole list of reasons why you should never talk to the feds without a lawyer. Mostly because you're a little person and they aren't. So just don't give up your own individual rights too quickly. Please do not be obedient. We need to disobey when it makes sense. And this isn't even disobeying. This is just asserting your rights. And then Carol Cadwallader from The Guardian has 10 lessons in a post-truth world for how to survive the brawligarchy. And that's, of course, my world out here in Silicon Valley, but it's now bigger. We've gone international. So yes, there are 20 lessons in the post-truth world for surviving the brawligarchy. Again, these are meta. And then another meta that's really good is Jared Yates Sexton's Preparing for the Storm and Getting Ready for What's Coming. So it's like, get better at this website and categorizing this stuff. I've got to get the stuff in there that's meta for the people who want to think about things versus the people who need to take action. So that's where we are. That's the blue list. And I'm glad to be back. I've got some guests coming that are going to be great. Hopefully this will be a lot of fun. And hopefully I'll be able to share my news with you very, very soon. Thank you for listening. I look forward to talking to you again soon.